What are the different bean scopes in Spring? In Spring, bean scopes define how long a bean lives. The main types are Singleton. Singleton means one instance for whole application. Second one is prototype. In prototype, a new instance each time it's needed. Third one is request. The request meaning is one instance per web request. For a session, one instance per user session, and a global session, one instance per global session. Used in special cases like portlet applications, these scopes help control bean creation and usage. In which scenario will you use singleton and prototype scopes? Use a singleton scope when we need just one shared instance of a bean for the whole application, like for configuration settings. Use prototype scope when we need a new instance every time the bean is requested, such as for objects that hold user specific data or have different states for different users. What is the default scope in Spring Framework? The default bean scope in Spring Framework is singleton. This means that only one instance of the bean is created and shared across the entire Spring application. Are singleton beans thread safe? No. Singleton beans in Spring is not a thread safe by default because they are shared by multiple parts of the application at the same time. We need to extract code to make them safe for use by multiple threads. This usually means using synchronized methods or thread safe data structure. Can we have a multiple Spring configuration files in one project? Yes, we can have a multiple Spring configuration files in one project. This allows us to organize and manage our bean definitions and configurations more effectively by separating them into different files based on their purpose or a module. We can then load these configuration files into our application context as needed. Name some of the design patterns used in Spring Framework. I have used the single pattern to ensure a single instance of beans, which helps manage resources efficiently. I have also used the factory pattern to create bean instances, making it easier to manage and configure objects in a flexible way. How does the scope prototype work? The prototype scope in Spring means that a new instance of a bean is created each time it is needed. Unlike the singleton scope, which uses the same instance, the prototype scope gives a fresh separate bean for every request. This is useful when we need a new instance for each request or a user operation. What are Spring profiles and how do you use them? Spring profiles provide a way to segregate parts of our application configuration, make it only available in certain environments. They can be activated via the spring.profiles.active property in application properties file. JVM system properties are programmatically used at profile annotation to associate beans with profiles. What is Spring Web Flux and how is it different from Spring MVC? Spring Web Flux is a part of a Spring 5 that supports reactive programming. It is a non-blocking reactive framework built on Project Reactor. Unlike Spring MVC, which is an asynchronous and blocking, Web Flux is asynchronous and non-blocking, making it suitable for applications that require high concurrency with fewer resources. You are starting a new Spring project. What factors would you consider when deciding between using annotations and XML for configuring your beans? Annotations provide more concise and readable code, easier to maintain and understand, and are part of a code itself. XML configuration is better for complex configurations, offers separation of concerns, and can be modified without recompiling the code. So I would first consider team familiarity, project requirements and configuration complexity and would take decision as per these criteria. You have a large Spring project with many interdependent beans. How would you manage the dependencies to maintain clean code and reduce coupling? I would use dependency injection to manage dependencies. Utilize Spring profiles for environment specific configurations. Group related beans in separate configuration classes. Use at component scan to automatically discover beans. You have a singleton bean that needs to be thread safe. What approaches would you take to ensure it's a thread safety? I would use a synchronized method or blocks to control access to critical sections. Use thread local to provide a thread confined objects. Implement stateless beans where possible to avoid shared state. Use concurrent utilities from java.util.concurrent.